The American Dragon, Bryan Danielson, is arguably one of, if not the greatest professional wrestlers of all time. And while that debate is for another video, the reality is Bryan is in the final countdown of his pro wrestling career. It wasn't that long ago, after All Out 2023, that Bryan came out on Dynamite and said that he had made a promise to his daughter Birdie that by the time her 7th birthday rolls around, he would no longer be a full-time professional wrestler and instead devote himself to being a full-time family man. And we all want that for Bryan. That is more than noble, and honestly, it's something he deserves after the career that he has had. This is someone who has given so much to the pro wrestling business, so much to pro wrestling fans, and so much to wrestlers. The American Dragon, Bryan Danielson, influenced an entire generation of wrestlers through his work in ROH in the mid to late 2000s and then in WWE in the 2010s. There is no one, I'm going to argue, in the past 20 years who came to prominence, who has had the impact on this industry and wrestlers especially, than Bryan Danielson. And one of the reasons for that is because he is a 5-tool player as a wrestler. We all know the technical prowess of Bryan Danielson. That doesn't even need to be addressed. He is arguably the best technical wrestler of all time. People always compare him to the likes of Kurt Angle, Bret Hart and company. And if you ask me, I don't think there's anyone who's done it better. He has made professional wrestling feel real. He'll twist his opponents into knots. And he has the ability to do this very slow technical style that is methodical, that is brutal, and that makes you believe. And that is what's so important as a wrestler, making fans buy into the idea that what they're seeing before them is real and suspending that disbelief. And in my view, I don't think anyone does that better in the ring than the American Dragon, Bryan Danielson. And then you go to his promos. This was someone who in 2010, when he came into WWE, was not considered to be a great promo. But if you look at the work that he did in the 2010s to elevate his promo ability, I think by the end of his run in WWE, he became a top 5 promo in wrestling. And if you want evidence of that, all you have to do is go back and watch that promo before WrestleMania 37. Bryan Danielson made people sitting at home genuinely believe that Roman Reigns, who was in the middle of his dominant run as WWE Universal Champion, was about to lose that belt. It had many fans believing that Bryan was going to be the guy to lose that belt. And there was a lot of talk back then of that potentially happening. And it all goes back to that promo. If you have not seen that promo, I highly recommend you go watch it. It is a masterclass when it comes to selling a match, selling a pay-per-view, and selling yourself as a professional wrestler. And he has done that time and time again. And I think the run that he's having in AEW on the mic is one of the all-time best we've seen. Promo battles with the likes of MJF, Kenny Omega, Will freaking Ospreay, and the list goes on and on and on. Bryan has more than held his own. He has elevated others. And again, this is someone who has inspired an entire generation of talent. Look at someone like Daniel Garcia, who's spoken so highly of Bryan in the past. He once said on John Alba's one-on-one podcast, quote, "He may be my favorite wrestler of all time, at least top 3. He's someone who I've studied for years, even before I knew I was studying wrestling, by just watching him. I would pick up little nuances that he does. I feel like our wrestling styles aren't as similar as some people like to say they are, but I feel like the little things that we do are a lot more similar than a lot of people would like to notice." But his words there give you a little bit of insight into how talent view Bryan Danielson. Beyond that, Bryan is one of the most beloved figures in all of pro wrestling by fans. Look at his rise in 2014 to the main event of WrestleMania, defeating 3 of 4 members of Evolution in the same night to capture the WWE and World's Heavyweight Championships respectively. This guy made it to the top because the fans wanted him there, and it was genuine. It wasn't supposed to happen, but it did because the fans, all of us, willed it to be. And that is a key part of Bryan's legacy. Being beloved by his fans, being beloved by his peers, and being beloved by the sport of professional wrestling. And as his career comes to a close, it looks like his final match will come in the Tacoma Dome at AEW Wrestle Dream this coming October, and we will see the final full-time match for the American Dragon, Bryan Danielson. And regardless of what you think and who you think is the best of all time, I think we can all agree that when it does happen, we will be glued to our seats watching history as one of the greatest of all times does his final bow and finally retires from full-time action. As far as who he's going to wrestle, though, I guess we'll see.